So
Yes.
you guys can see the game and you can see each other. Wonderful. Okay. All right. So
Yes.
let's start. Thank you so much for joining this. It's a panel which I'm very familiar with. Um, so let's start by introducing ourselves first. This is the first video before we announce which game we are dissecting today. The objective of this channel or this initiative was primarily to look at every game, especially the popular modern strategy games, and try to see from a game designer's perspective and not from a gamer's perspective. I think with this, sort of activity, I think we'll be able to pull out a lot of insights from this game. Especially Splendor is something which I think they sold like 1 million copies anyway. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. This is the first episode. I'm really excited. So before we dive into anything else, I want to start off with each one of you. And then I'll introduce myself at the last. So first, let's start with Shradha.
Hi everyone, I am Shradha. I'm based out of Bangalore. I'm a game design educator. I literally play for a living and I teach people how to play board games and how they partake in creating their own mechanics and systems and understanding games at a more core level. So whether analog or digital does not matter. The idea is to set a good foundation, and that's what I have been primarily doing. I'm trained as a filmmaker and I have a background in fine arts. And it's been a decade long journey exploring and researching on traditional board games and now contemporary board games a lot more. So that's
That's
me.
that's
And it's been a wonderful journey. Thank you for having me on this panel today.
question to you. How many times have you played Splendor?
Uh, I would not have kept a count, but I was thinking a little while ago, when did I first get my own copy of Splendor? It was 2017, but I opened it in 2018. So I had a lot of games which were unboxed till that time. So they have been sitting on the shelf, and the friends were like, "Ye kyun nahi khela? Ye kyun nahi khela?" And then I finally somebody had to open it for me and introduce this game Splendor, and we cracked it together. Like most of the games, it's better if somebody knows it already, or then you have two minds cracking their heads and like getting familiarized. So I must have
Absolutely.
played it close to like 50, 100 times, if not more. My nieces play with me very often. My mother, she's 63 years old. She loves playing Splendor. So
Fantastic.
it covers quite a spectrum.
I mean, that just shows what a fantastic game we picked for the first episode. Yes. All right.
Yes.
So, yeah, thank you so much, Shraddha. Thank you for making time and really, really excited to have you on this panel. Um,
Thank you.
Super thrilled, rather. And even though you had so many events today, you actually made time for this. It's really amazing.
It's a
Uh,
pleasure to be here.
yeah, so
Yes.
you're in Bangalore. Great. We are both in Bangalore. Fantastic. So let's start with the youngest, Shyam.
Hey everyone, I'm Shyam. I'm currently doing my master's in games engineering at TU Munich in Germany. I'm also a co-founder at Vilayat, where we are hoping to build board games and have them out starting later this year. I've been a gamer since I've been very young, back when it was not that cool. Um, and my interests lie in building game systems, hopefully which can be used for socioeconomic modeling. So I'm interested in making complex problems into more simple solutions which people can play in a game, maybe debate, maybe argue about it, maybe inform policy decisions in a more friendly atmosphere. That's my goal. And Splendor, I mean, I got Splendor, I think back in 2016 or 2017, somewhere there. I've played a lot of it. I have lost a lot of it. So you may already be questioning why I should be talking about it, but that's me.
So you still have a copy of Splendor, though.
I do, yes.
Fantastic. All right. So thank you so much, Shyam. You mentioned that you're in Munich, in Germany, and Shyam is like an angel for us because he's the guy who we go to for any questions. He for some reason, has the best, wisest advice for us and has saved probably lakhs of rupees for us. Thanks, Shyam. I don't know if you know this, but thank you so much.
No worries.
Probably have brainwashed you with it every time we meet. Anyway, so that's how grateful I am to you. So yeah, Mangesh.
Yeah.
He's the most experienced in game design on this panel, I think.
I'm not so sure about it, but yeah. I so my name is Mangesh. I'm currently trying to develop a game design and art program in one of the institutes in Pune. And before that, I was working as an independent game designer with my friends, and we were one of the independent developers at Xbox. As on a We worked on an indie games, and ever I mean I don't know, ever since I remember things, the computer was there in my house, and I have always been playing games on that. So a lot of, like, most of my background has been video games. But in 2013 I met a few professors from France, like when I was taking my game design degree, and they introduced me to a lot of board games. I was playing some games since 2007, but 2013 was like a year for me where I started digging into board games a lot, and I kind of studied board games and how I can convert them into video games, and how I can replicate a player experience of a board game into video game, and can it be done the other way also, is something that I have been studying on.
Fantastic.
On the other side, I have a, a degree in project management, so I know a lot of stuff about project management, and I like to kind of follow processes and create processes for these games projects specifically. So
We've seen, we've witnessed.
yeah, so that's me.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
And I think Splendor, I think we started, so that's when I started game meets in Pune also. So I used to host Pune board gamers meets, since I have been doing that since 2013. And Splendor was always a part of, like, I don't know, I think we have like 6 copies of Splendors in Pune. So I didn't buy it myself, but we had copies. So I think I've played a lot of Splendor too. Yeah,
Absolutely. I think both of us have that copy of the Halloween edition, right? I mean, oh, there he goes. He goes again. No. Pune.
No, maybe that was his Halloween vibe.
Right. So yeah, by the time he comes back, I think let me introduce myself. I'm
hello.
probably the
Yeah, sorry. So my power came
He's
back.
back.
That's why I had.
He's
Yeah,
back.
so I had a.
So you
I
have
had a. I
like
had
a
a.
2 backup in your UPS or something.
Yeah, it my Wi-Fi router disconnects and connects, so it will take a.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
You need to get a UPS for your PC and your room.
Yeah. I just moved to a new place, so there's some things which are still not taken.
Oh, right. You were mentioning. Correct.
Yep.
So, I think compared to all of you guys, I have the least experience when it comes to game design. I'm just, probably, wait, let me, how do I zoom this? Okay. So, a little bit about myself. My name is Phalgun. We dived into game design professionally probably 4 years ago now, or a little more than that, 5 years maybe. But we hadn't registered a company. We were just experimenting with things and seeing if, nobody told us that this would be a business and stuff like that. So we were just playing around and stuff. So the biggest thing that we have, we pivoted into is basically when we started 4 years ago. It was toys, games, comics, everything, AR, VR, all of the things, and then games was just one of the small branches in the whole thing, part of Dice Toy Labs, and we made a massive change a couple of years ago. And that was the biggest change. Was we jumped into board games, and after that there's no looking back. I don't think we can ever go back to any other medium right now. And having said that, we've designed more than 50 plus games in the last 3-4 years and sold them off, licensed them off. Some of them are we publish our own games as well. We design and also publish some of the games designed by some geniuses out there in India. And we've had probably around 10 or 10 games in the market now, and we are also still experimenting. Honestly speaking, even after 4 years, I still feel we are at day one. So there's a long way to go, and we're seeing a hell lot of potential in this. Especially the game design group is growing rapidly on all medium, whether it's Facebook, WhatsApp, or Discord, or anywhere. And the amount of interaction that has been happening on that these platforms is just proof that people are excited about this hobby from the supply perspective and from being a gamer. So I'm very excited about this. But this particular channel today, what we are going to discuss is primarily focused at dissecting a game from a designer's lens, okay, not from a gamer's lens. So we already know it's a fantastic game. We've all played the game. It's a great game. We don't have to dive deep into each and nitty-gritties of the rules and stuff like that. But today, what we want to look at is, let's first take up the game. The game that we are actually looking at today is Splendor, as we already mentioned before. Splendor actually has multiple expansions as well, but today we are only going to look at the base edition. Okay, and the base edition is the major chunk of the entire game. The expansions just add a small manipulations here and there to the gameplay and end game triggers and winning conditions, but the basic game is the major skeletal system of the entire game. So all right, I've set up Splendor, and let's take a quick look for just try to understand how the different components are in this particular game. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So let me switch on the mic on this one.
Yeah. Okay, there's an echo.
All right. Okay.
This is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys can see, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Also, if you can just pin the main tab, like of the game tab, as I don't know, on.
Mic is it on?
Your mic is on. The Splendor screen can be pinned for everyone so that it's the central part, and then we can walk our viewers through it.
Okay. So Splendor is a pretty big box. The beautiful thing about this game is, the artwork. It's extremely intriguing, and you have this merchant looking at a gemstone, and for a very long time I never noticed these two characters on the box. We also keep track of the score of whoever the highest score. So I have the Indian edition, which has the English this thing. So basically, if you look at the objective of the game, right? I can just read it out to you guys. So in Splendor, you take on the role of a rich merchant during the Renaissance period. You will use your resources to acquire mines, transportation methods, and artisans who will allow you to turn raw gems into beautiful jewels. So that's what the story is for the game. All right. And, if you look at the game overview, it's really nice that they've mentioned, it's such a small, thin rule book, which itself is like, it reduces the, barrier to entry for people, right? That's fantastic. So the game overview says that during the game, the players take gem and gold tokens. So these are the different gems and gold tokens. With these tokens, they purchase development cards. So they actually call these cards as development cards, right? And which are worth prestige points. So these points at the corner are the prestige points, okay? And or bonuses. These bonuses allow players to purchase subsequent development cards for a lesser cost. So there are some of these development cards which actually give you bonuses. Like for example, this particular card will give you a diamond throughout the game and things like that. When a player has enough bonuses, they immediately receive a visit from a noble. So basically, you can redeem these cards to, they call it a visit from the noble or something like that. But you basically acquire this extra bonus card. So it gives you 3 victory points immediately. and or prestige points. I never understood why different games call victory points as their own. I always used to think while designing Taj Karigari Taj also, we were discussing so much that why should we call it Taj points and not just victory points? And yeah, so the winning condition is basically as soon as a player reaches 15 prestige points, the current turn ends, and the player with the most prestige points is declared the winner. Okay, so pretty straightforward. You basically acquire resources, buy some of these development cards, redeem them for points, or the development cards themselves give you points, right? So yeah, let's look at it a little bit more deeper, and I'll keep this particular screen on the uh,
Yes.
stream running.
Yeah. Okay. Uh,
All right.
I think we lost the screen of the game.
Oops.
Cool. All right. So, how do you want to do it, Phalgun? Like, is it like you are going to ask us something and then we should talk about
Each of
it?
us can respond. Yeah.
Yeah. So, from a theme perspective, did you guys get the theme while you're setting it up? Did you feel it was pretty obvious?
Okay. Should I go first?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go first, Mangesh.
All right. All right. So, I personally think that theme in board games is quite important. Like, and the one of the reasons, one of the ways you invite players to play is through theme and the premise of the game. And I think, I mean, I'm not a fan of the cards in Splendor though, but they're good enough for you to invite players to the game, is what I believe. So when I teach Splendor to someone, like I'll invite, like you play as these, uh, you know, I don't know, traders or collectors of different jewels from different areas, and you have to collect them. And even those the top four cards, which those they are like nobles, right? Like, so you have to kind of impress them by giving them, by showing them that you hold these nobles, kind of. So little bit of that kind of theme. I come up with different stuff every time, so that there might be same players, a couple of same players playing with a new player. So I try to kind of keep it like that, and that is why I think, and this is good enough because the gems and the jewels are actually quite obvious to understand. Okay, this is a diamond, we can see it. So I think that way the theme does its job, but I think it could have been better in some point. You're on mute.
No, just to add to what Mangesh just mentioned, I love the theme of it. For me, to introduce a Euro style board game to people, it becomes so easy when there's a fantastic theme and when I'm able to visually break down what's happening on these cards for a reason. So I start off with, okay, we'll be playing merchants and our objective is to get these 15 victory points, prestige points. I just mentioned, I don't try to use a lot of jargon that would be familiar to a lot of gamers on the regular basis. Idea is to build communities, so be as less intimidating as possible. But when the artwork comes into picture, it's very mesmerizing to see. When I tell them, look at these lower cards, they are still mining the goods. Then you'll be transporting or polishing the goods, and then they'll hit the market, and that is why they are most expensive to get. So when you just break it down in a story format, it immediately strikes the people playing on the table for the first time. And it's still a very fantastic game where when you say, like, what is the difference between collecting these circular tokens versus the nobles, which require cards? So this is a point where a lot of people keep asking, but now I have 3 cards and 2 tokens. Can I take this noble? No, nobles can't be taken. They come and pay you a visit. If you're wealthy enough and you're like this big, so I compare it to any of the Indian cities which have this whole uh, popular culture of like, I have this big car and this that. Like, if you're wealthy enough, the merchants will come and pay you. The nobles will come and pay you a visit. So when I break it down in a story format, the entire visual, the objective of the game, what needs to be done, anatomy of a single card, people are able to grasp pretty well. So I think I've understood that
I
thing,
think
that
that's
it's
a
not
very good point you
intimidating.
brought up. So the story was used to act as a hook to get people to play the game. Otherwise, it would be way too abstract for people to actually start playing. And it kind of paints a picture in their mind. It's like at the back of their mind, they're feeling, oh, okay, I've done this, some sort of achievement of sorts, that they've actually gone the entire life cycle of a gem to, acquiring a novel. So, if that wasn't there, you can still play this game without any theme, honestly speaking.
Yeah.
But I think the word splendor and what the kind of emotion it evokes, and also the story, as you mentioned, starting from ground zero, and you slide progress upwards, and I think that story that you mentioned is truly the hook. So hook is really really important when you're actually working on a game, right? Otherwise, anybody can rip it off. Anybody can say that, hey, this game I've already seen another game like this. But I feel the main differentiating factor as a designer also, when you're even if it's a publisher, sometimes the publisher has the responsibility to paint a theme on a game, right? So I've noticed that a theme uh, goes really deep, and in kind of capturing the player's attention through the game. So yeah, great. That's a fantastic point that you guys brought up. Sham, do you want to add something?
I like the theme of Splendor. I think there's something around gems collecting. It's very shiny. If you think Splendor, it's very shiny. It's very appealing. That
Right.
being said, I don't think the description of the game is completely faithful to the theme. In the sense, I feel like the educator in Shradha came out and made the story really exciting. And in a way, yes, the cards do talk about some of that. However, if you read what the rulebook says, the very first line, it says you'll build transport networks and some other stuff, right? That doesn't really come out in the game. For me, at the end of the day, you collect gems and then you
Honestly,
buy
I
things which give you more
noticed
gems.
while reading it. I'm like, oh, really? Oh, okay. So those are the things.
Yeah, so I feel like those I'm not super happy with, in the sense I feel like those are just added for fluff. They don't really come out. So I think it's a bit of a misrepresentation. But
Right.
sticking with just gems, I think it's great. It's got enough of a hook. It's very solid. And the thing is, this theme could be anything, right? We could be running a chicken farm.
Yeah.
You could be saying you're
Yeah.
collecting 5 different colors of chicken eggs and you're trying to do something with it. Somehow that's not that exciting though. When you put gems in there, oh, you're collecting these shiny gems to weave into, I don't know, jewelry or something.
That's a good
That sounds
point.
really
What
exciting.
is the age group of this game?
8 plus,
8 plus.
10 plus. Yeah.
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 And I think gems would excite everybody, whether it's from being an age-neutral theme. If you actually just said chickens and stuff like that, farm animals, I think kids would it would be very laser focused at a kid target audience. So
But I wonder how many people end up using the names of these gems in the game. It still ends up being red, green, and blue,
Yeah, for
or
sure.
like
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
एक
It's a
एक down एक वो.
okay, let's see. Quick trivia question. What is the black stone called?
Jet.
Jets.
Onyx.
I think it's
Exactly.
Jet.
Oh,
Onyx.
Is it? I think it's called Jet. I think it's based on
No,
the
no, no. It
region.
is Onyx. I mean, even I
Onyx.
learned about it only recently. Yeah, it says Onyx.
Onyx. Yes.
Interesting.
Onyx.
So
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know
another
this.
What do you say?
thing that I think the game was originally published in French, if I'm
Right.
not wrong, and what they have done is like they've translated the rule books, and some of the translation have come out very wrong in the rule book. Is what I know. Like I have a lot of French friends, and I think I've had a conversation where they said, "Ki, this is not how it means." Like uh, I think that's where, like, when the description, like acquiring minds, they use a statement acquiring minds, like you don't, so basically they just say that because there is a mind picture on one of the cards, like, so
Right.
I agree with what Sham was saying, that it's not like you're buying it, you're just, I mean, you're just getting those cards, and so,
Exactly.
but if you read that in French, it's not like acquiring mind is what the debate
Oh,
was, I think.
really? Okay, we have to look at.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I think one thing I forgot to mention is the game designer's name is Marc Andre, and yeah, I think this guy must be minting gems right now. a few minds. So yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I think from the theme perspective, we've kind of dived pretty deep into it. Now I want to take a look at the gameplay itself. So who wants to go with it? Like, who wants to take a dig at this?
I can start because I
Yeah.
play with my 8-year-old, and I have seen her evolve playing Splendor so much so that she's super competitive with my mom when they get to play on the same table. And they just don't want to stop at 15 prestige points, first of all. So they play till the nobles go home or they are taken away, or they'll play till the cards get over, etc., etc. But of course, 15 is the target point. However, it takes a couple of rounds for you to build that momentum to start doing certain things in the game and to give yourself enough of those turns to get into the groove, to start strategizing a bit more and keep a balance between what cards you're targeting, what the other person is doing, keeping your eyes out because it's a game that's being played open. So you're actually doing this whole engine building of what your turns can do in the future and have plan A, plan B, plan C, and maybe more. So I've seen her like really do things very strategically, but it's just that like it takes a little time to get to that mid game, where uh, the party is happening in the mid game, and you forget about what else is happening around you. So just getting people into the groove of it, I think this whole momentum building within this game, how smartly it has been designed, or how people get into the action of like understanding what you're doing on each turn is very apt according to me. So it takes a little push at times for newbies to get on board and then say like a card game खेलते हैं. Let's play another round.
Right.
I think it's a good thing to
So,
get as a newbie to
I mean,
get
I would
people
want to
started.
get your opinion. When you actually introduce this game to a newbie,
Hmm.
how long do you think, or how long did we take as gamers to figure out the strategy? Basically, this particular game, it's see, the main reason why
Hmm.
it's a modern strategy game is because it's completely different setup, different starting conditions every game, right?
Hmm.
So that's one of the main definitions why it's called modern strategy games. And but even though they call it a modern strategy game, uh, how long do you think? How many games did you take to figure out the slightly, like an umbrella strategy that you would apply for winning in this game?
Uh,
I have okay, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
no,
Go
no,
ahead,
no.
Mangesh.
You can
Go
say.
on.
You can say, Shraddha. No problem. I was
No,
I was just
I was just thinking because I've played with so many new people each time since I was running this whole thing in Ahmedabad building game community. I played the same game in an easy way a lot many times, but very few times very competitively where everyone's on the same page as you are. So I come from a very different perspective. Unless Mangesh and Sham have played it competitively over and over again,
I want to
and they have a
engage
certain style of
people.
playing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what I used to so a lot of people ask me, like, what is the best approach to play this game, or best strategy. What I usually tell uh them is that look at the noble cards and work towards them. Like, this is the
Hmm.
one simple statement I tell them to do. I don't want them to kind of, you know like, I don't want them want that particular game to be my way of playing game. So
Hmm.
because I've seen a lot of players copying the one who's teaching, and I don't want that to happen with anyone who I teach. So I just tell them, like, just look at the noble cards, try to work towards them. They're giving you free points, like, kind of like, once they visit, it's a free action, right? Like, you don't have to waste an action to get those noble cards. So you can potentially score a 5 pointer card from third level and an additional 3 points. So I just tell them that, look at the noble cards. That's one of the ways I kind of tell them how to strategize their game.
So you basically work from noble cards backwards. How about you, Sham?
Well, there's actually a dominant strategy in the game, but it's not
Yes.
dominant depending on how if everyone is playing the same strategy. So I actually started off, I was, I guess, tricked by these nobles as well, where when I started off playing Splendor, I used to target the nobles. That is actually not the optimal way to play. In fact, you can safely
Hmm.
win without collecting a single noble. And in fact, the best way, assuming that everyone else around the table has no idea what they're doing, and you have a lay of the land, like you can get any card that you want in this theoretical game. Your best way of winning is either collecting 3 5s, like 3 5-pointer cards, or a combination of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, such that you get your 15 points. You can safely ignore all the nobles because they require too many cards, which means the return on investment on those is too much. Right. But if everyone around the table plays exactly like you, then you can no longer do what you wanted to do because now you have to play a best response. Exactly. And then the nobles gets into play. Right. So to your original question on how has your gameplay sort of changed or whatnot, I think depending on who you play with, you can either afford to go for the greedy sort of strategy where you just aim to win as quickly as possible, but that's also a little risky because you can get blocked. Or you go for a nobles approach, which is longer but a little safer. Safer from perspective of you will eventually get the points, but also a little risky because you'll win later.
Right. So I think, if you look at the design of the game, right, you basically the game designer has thought of one thing, you need to reach 15 victory points, right? Now, he might have thought of 20 victory points, 30 victory points. Basically, the end game trigger was you have to work towards victory points, right? Now, how do you earn these victory points? Let's, give multiple paths and multiple ways to earn these points, right? So he was like, okay, let's have some cards which are expensive but gives you a point, and some of them which are really cheap and still gives you a point. So people are going to fight for it and things like that, right? And then you also have the nobles and all of these. But what I was trying to understand is, if there was no, like for example, there are some tokens. I mean, it's a very dynamic game. The market is changing dynamically. You just can't play a solitaire kind of it's not like a solo game where you're trying to figure out your own strategy and move on. But it's going to change all the time. So it's just brilliant how this particular game brings in one of the key, ingredients for a good game, which is player interaction, where you're actually looking at everybody's play area, And second thing is the way they have distributed the components, right? I was actually looking at the count of the components for every game. So there is a supply and demand that he has brought in, right? So in my mind, I always look at this game as an economics game. Basically, I'm building an revenue engine of sorts, and it's generating stuff, and it generate more things for me. And there is absolutely no negativity in this game, if you think about it. There is nothing which will cut down your points.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the game, if I have extra cards which are or extra tokens which I haven't used, it's not going to give you negative points. So it's an extremely rewarding kind of a game which is designed specifically for a mass market. When one of the ingredients for a mass market game, other than player interaction at the table, second thing is it has to be extremely rewarding. In this particular game, no matter what you do, whether you take a token or a card, it's always going to be a positive kind of an impact to your game.
Yeah. But building towards that card that you're trying to get and someone else takes it or reserves it is the only bitter sour experience that is there. Since there is no direct player interaction, there's indirect player interaction. I know what's happening around. And there is some sort of verbal communication happening unless you're playing a digital version of it.
I was looking at that card and you took it, my mom is
I wanted it and you've taken it. You're very, you're this, you're that. No, but you can do this, you can do that. So I hear them and I watch them, I totally enjoy it. So just the fact that some of these cards where you understand the value, just coming to the previous point of nobles and cards also, where certain cards do not have victory points. So people often ask, but what is the point of taking it? So when you have to give them directly, spoon feed them, ki, dude, you need these for XYZ purpose or that nobles, and then they give you discount later. It takes a little of that. That is that learning curve that I was talking about, where certain things have to be fed. Ki dekho, all cards are important in its own way, and these are cheaper to get. Totally up to you whether you want to target high points and save more for it, or you want to go for let's do small fishing and then go for the bigger stake.
I know some people who actually memorize the kind of cards and they actually wait for those cards to come.
Oh.
Because there are some cards where, like for example, if you look at the setup here, you have the the lowest row where you have two blues, right? Both of them are going to give you an emerald.
Yeah.
And both of them are not going to give you a point anyway. They're just going to give you one emerald. Which one?
Yeah.
So this is a true economics thing. It's like I'm just going to go to anything where I'm going to get rid of the least amount of resources. Like this particular one needs 5 coins, which is made up of different tokens. Tokens, and the other one just needs 3. So I might as well go for that, right? So it's such a brilliantly designed game. Again, if you look at the breakup of the cards, the lowest end where it gives you just one. It's easy to get those cards, and some of them will give you a point, like take kind of thing, but it's limited, and a lot of people actually just go for the lowest end because they can acquire it really fast.
Yes.
And we have also noticed during the game that the lowest row is the first row to get completed. You won't have any. And if you actually play the digital version, the Asmodee
App.
game, it actually keeps track of how many cards are left.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know how many people actually.
No, but that stuff can be enabled and disabled. Like in a competitive mode, all these things won't show up. Like it will also tell you how many cards you need to finish that card that you are targeting. Kind of like when it's your turn, it will have like a green border. This card you can play. Actually, that way it's actually the game is kind of telling you get this card. Like, and a lot of players on the internet do that.
It's the training mode, yeah.
Shyam, I think all of you guys, I'm sure you kind of make a spreadsheet as soon as you start thinking about a game, right?
Guilty.
We can't survive or design any game without a spreadsheet. So in this particular game, how would you come up with a spreadsheet? It's not just for Shyam. For all of us. What are the parameters that you would list out to come up with the different variations? Let's start with the lowest row of cards. What would we look at?
So I think you'd start off by probably setting everything to some equivalent unit. So you'll say that every color is the same, which it is at the start. And then when you're coming up with cards, you're essentially combining colors in certain ways. And that's your net total, right? So let's say every card has exactly 4 gems. So every card's value is 4. And then you're mixing and matching, and you come up with a list of cards saying, okay, I'll one of each color except the 5th color. And then you modify that so that you have 4 versions of that, 5 versions of that. And you make sure that all of their net values or their costs are the same. And then after that, I think you gravitate around a mean and you make some cards more expensive and some cards cheaper. So in this game, not every card has the same return on investment. Some cards are actually just strictly speaking more efficient to get than other cards. You should always go for card A over card B if you have a choice of both. But the idea is you keep both because to sort of build on Shradha's point earlier where she said there's a sort of indirect interaction where someone can reserve a card that you were about to take.
Exactly.
The good thing about this is if you just miss out, it's not an all or nothing where you're doomed now. It's more around a case of, okay, I couldn't get the most efficient card, but let me just take an extra turn to collect 1 more gem or 2 more gems, and then I can get this other more expensive variant of that card. So my guess is that was probably around the reasons why they had such duplicates where there is a best option and then a second best option for a particular card.
Yeah.
All around a similar point value to say, okay, no card should be ridiculous. It should all gravitate around a particular mean. Let's call that mean 5 for now or something like that. But maybe some cards will be 6 and maybe some cards will be 4.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I would have done. But, I actually tried analyzing it a little bit. The designer has obviously tried to make, if we actually think about it, 1 card with 3, 1 card with 4 resources, 1 card with 2 resources, and just manipulate the same thing and repeat the same thing. And sometimes he has thrown in some googlies. That's what I realized. There are some cards where you will get an onyx by paying with an onyx.
Yes.
There are some googlies like that where you're like, why am I getting rid of my tokens to get the damn thing, right? The same resource to get just to acquire the card. It's very interesting how he's thrown in. So I think if we had to come up with a deck like this, it's pretty easy today. We can just come up with some parameters, add a cost value to it, make some expensive, as you said, some of the figure out the median, and then do a plus or minus above that. So, but if you actually look at the purpose of the top row, I always felt that top row was pretty redundant.
I mean, you're saying the one
The
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 highest,
blue.
the gems that you get.
yeah,
Okay,
the
okay,
top one, the one where the blue cards basically, where you
Hmm.
need to give out at least close to
okay,
sometimes close to 12, 13 or 15 cards.
okay, okay. So I would like to
Yes.
add something here. Like there are multiple factors why these cards are here. Is what I feel. First of all, this game targets everyone. Like, okay, so you need to understand that this game is made for someone who are new, someone who know board games, and someone who like to master the board games. Okay, this game is for everyone. So for new people we have strategies and stuff like that, but when you have kind of mastered something, like in first game you kind of figured out ki, like I wanted to do these things. So that's when people start looking at the third level. So the competitive splendors that we have, splendor matches that we have hosted, uh,
Hmm.
I've seen people targeting only the third cards actually, like third. So I think Sham mentioned like you can score
Okay.
3 5 pointers and win the game straight away, but
Hmm.
there are again variations in that. If you notice, if there is a card which requires 7 blacks and 3 greens, for example, and then there is a card which requires 3 3 3 3, the 3 3 3 3 is easier to get, and it is giving you one less point.
Right.
And so
Hmm.
basically that's where people start coming up with those master strategies kind of things, and that's why these cards are there. The level 3 are there because I think the game also needs to target those kind of players at some point. uh, and so that is one of the reasons is what I feel.
I think
And
Mangesh let out a very important strategy in the game. So basically, you need to make a set of three of all the gems, and it'll keep generating stuff for you, right?
yeah,
Just think of
I mean,
everything. Just
there are multiple ways of playing this game. So we have seen competitive games where people have won in I think 7 or 9 cards. You need minimum 7 cards to win the game, right? I think
Mhm.
like that is one of the ways. Yeah, I mean, if yeah, you can win the game in 7 cards is what I 7 or 9. I'm not sure, but something like that. But it happens only when other players let you do it. Uh, so it totally depends on
Would
other
you
players.
agree if I told you that there are some of these mechanisms in this game were thrown in just to distract the player?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So that can be a possibility, and that is definitely might be the case. So for example, like the Onyx example that you were giving, uh what I see, like when you asked about Excel sheet, like I think that Excel sheet is actually available on BGG if you go and check.
Oh wow!
Uh,
Okay.
I mean, there's a PDF like they have created, like, so there are 4 types of gems that you collect. Five, like red, green, white, blue, black. You put it there and the cost in those, and you will get the victory points ka sheet. It's very. I think I've it's available on BGG for sure.
You should check it
So
out.
yeah, so but there might be some like you can see that there is a this shouldn't have been there kind of feeling that you get when you look at the sheet. But I don't know if it the distracting player was the objective of doing that. Might be something to do with the balancing, or like I don't know when he I don't know,
Exactly.
15th.
That's a very good keyword you brought up. We can segue into balancing now.
Yeah,
So, from the game design perspective, if you actually look at this, um, one thing that you mentioned was, I mean, manipulators to the entire game, right? So, like for example, this particular gems, the count. I mean, if you look at it from an overall perspective, what are all the things that are there in the game, right? So there is limited supply of coins, I mean tokens, which keep
Yeah.
going and coming. So tokens itself is not unlimited access. One.
Having a cap on only having 10 up to 10 tokens is a fantastic element, or you can reserve only up to
I'm sure
3
that was
cards.
brought in after a lot of play testing. Uh,
Yes.
so initially he's trying to figure out. So in game design, one of the things I'm sure all of us have done it is trying to see what is the cap. To
Hmm.
what extent can this
Hmm.
do, right?
Hmm.
Yes.
If you're given all of the resources, all access to everything, what is the max you can attain? That gives you two, what do you say, two objectives from that. So one is you're trying to figure out at what level it caps out, so we can figure out how we can bring in some manipulators to reduce the number or something like that. Second thing is from a component count, right? So you don't want to make a game with unlimited number of resources, which is going to make your life hell. So if you look at this game, it's so refined, right? I mean, the box is unnecessarily big. You can just pack it in a small Ziploc and take it anywhere, right? That's one of the beauty about these games. So
Hmm.
if you look at it from a high level, if you're trying to dissect the game, right? So the tokens are limited to 5 types of tokens, and the count of these tokens changes from player count.
Yeah.
And let's not touch upon the gold token right now.
Hmm.
And then if you look at you have cards to acquire these gems, and that itself, again, there's so many variations in that permutation combination of resources required to get those cards. And then you have second level of cards, third level of cards. Over and above this, he's designed all of these cards and figured out the math for it. Over and above this, he's again figured out a combination of cards for the noble times,
Yeah.
which is crazy if you actually think about it. If somebody has to come to this and design this particular game, and it's so elegant and so smooth throughout the game till the end of the game, is because it is so refined. It has reached almost that ultimate level, right? Now, do you think the gold token was required in the game?
Uh,
I think so.
I'd say yes. I mean, as a player, I definitely feel the need of it. I make the use of it a lot, uh, because uh, you know that the gold token is acquired only when you reserve a card, right? Like you reserve a card
Hmm.
and you get a gold token.
Right.
So it's not an easy way to. I mean, so I I don't know. I think I feel the need of it. Let me come up with a. Let me think for a minute. Like, but I think it was
I
It's not
think
very.
it's
anything
fantastic.
actually sacrificing your turn to get that card and the gold token.
Huh.
It's an expense that you're actually.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
But also the condition that you can use that gold token for any other card, not necessarily just this reserved card. The
yeah,
whole if and but within Splendor is phenomenal, is what I personally think. Where if you're reserving a card, you're also getting a gold token which acts like your wild card wherever you want to use it, or whether you were backstabbing someone else or you're genuinely trying to get 7 of a particular kind to get these high blue tier cards, sort
So
of
the
a thing.
question here is, fine. You mentioned that you want to grab that card so that's not available to the opponent. A lot of people actually start hoarding some of these cards just so that
Or maybe I'm just analyzing the others are also collecting similar tokens. We both have the same objective. I don't want to hurt anyone else's feeling, but I want to take that card because I've done a lot of
So the
effort
question
collecting
here
this
is,
token.
why is he giving a bonus? Why did the game designer decide to give a bonus for doing this kind of activity? I mean, the gold token is a bonus, right? Because you're actually already foregoing your turn to grab that card, and you can't do anything in that turn, correct? And on top of this, he's giving you a bonus. First of
I
all,
don't
you
think
have
it's a
the
bonus.
opportunity for somebody, and he's giving you a bonus, and it's a big bonus.
I don't think so. So One, I think the gold token is essential because apart from everything else, it allows you to bypass a supply constraint. So we spoke about
Hmm.
economics before, right? But
Right.
supply constraining is actually like, or hoarding is a concept that you can use in this game, right? If there are a lot of cards which require green gems,
Hmm.
I may not necessarily need those cards, but I can hold on to a huge pool of green gems and never let them go. And hold all of you to ransom around the board, saying, I will never let you buy your card because I'm holding on to the
Hmm.
stack. The
Yeah.
gold allows you to bypass that to a degree. That's
Hmm.
part of why it's important. The second is
Hmm.
I don't think the reserving is actually getting the gold token on the reserve is actually a bonus. I think it is what equalizes it to the other turns. So if you think of every action you can take in the game as having a certain utility, so there are
Yes.
three things you can
Yes.
do, right? You can take three gems, so one of each color. You can take two of the same color. You can buy a card or you can reserve a card. If you
Correct.
assume each of these has a certain utility in the game, like this is the amount of utility I derive from it, I think just reserving a card without getting the gem would place that at a really low utility.
Correct.
Hmm.
But
Very good.
getting one gem along with it uh,
Yeah.
kind of balances it out. You're still foregoing a turn. It is not the most optimal. The most optimal would be if you could just buy the card because your reserve is essentially making you waste a turn. You're
Hmm.
buying over two turns instead of one turn. But the
Right.
gold gem offsets it in that regard. That's why I think
It
you should
actually
do one.
balances that action that you're taking. It's not costing you too much. It's not overpowering you or giving you a major bonus or advantage.
Right. And
It's
that coupled with the fact that you can apply this gem to any card means that you bypass the supply constraint on other cards.
right.
In
So
which
that
case, a lot of people end up reserving cards either early on or they actually wait when they actually need it. So, the whole idea of whether I want to complete the reserved cards or not also lies with the player and their strategy, how they are planning it out. At times, they also play a lot with the gold tokens and using it as and when they require it. And then saying, "Okay, let's take a lower value card because after a few turns, I'll be able to finish the lower value card when reserved instead of reserving from the yellow tier or the blue tier." So just
right.
some observations
And
on.
also one more thing, if since we're gone into balance now, um, one of the things that you'll actually notice is when you actually get a noble tile, it's not going to give
Hmm.
you any. It's just giving you victory points. It doesn't give you a bonus.
Another gem or
Gem.
something like
So a lot of people, when they actually start aiming for this instead of a card will give you those victory points and a gem, right?
yes, yes.
So that's the way he has kind of made these multiple paths to get this particular thing is just amazing. Another thing I was thinking about is now we have sort of understood the distribution of the resources. I mean, not dive deep into the detail of it, but we sort
Hmm.
of have figured out how he must have gone about, right? Now if you look at the gems on the cards, right? One, you get victory points. But what if instead of four victory points, I actually gave you a card which gives me two gems? If you actually look at any of these cards, none of the cards will give you. I mean, there is a reason why he didn't give you the a card like that, which will give you two gems. Why do you think that was short term as an idea in the game?
I think I mean the obvious reason might be like it would have made game. I mean, again, like it has to do with some.
Overpowering.
Yeah, I mean, I personally find it quite overpowering. Like you can, uh, I mean, there is already a strategy where you can just play with two colors and win the game. Like so, uh, and in that case, if I start getting double gems in that color, it's like there's one way to win the. And if there is a kind of meta or like most efficient kind of thing to do, the people will kind of try to spam that thing like, okay, I want to do this, I want to get those uh so I if you notice the, I mean, there is Century Spice Road, if you've like, and
Yes.
on the similar lines with an added mechanic to it, there is there are two cards in the game which let you convert,
Correct.
like, and people try to go for those cards. It's because that it is so obvious that if I have that card, I'm going to be.
Conversion is the best mechanic in every game. That's the
Yes.
first thing you have to
and
conquer.
and that's what is happening in Century Spice. And I think that is one of the reasons why, like all these double things, or is kind of skipped in this game. I'm pretty sure he must have tried it, like instead of,
He has, right
yeah,
here.
What?
So these are the red deck from the expansion pack,
correct.
Oh,
and he has
And then,
thought of it. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
I
Maybe
don't
they
have
can.
the expansion pack. I don't know why.
So yeah, that's what I was gonna say. They might have put those ideas in expansions as
Yeah.
Cities of Splendors. Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shraddha. I'm so glad you have a copy of that to show it just in time.
Borrow it whenever. Yes.
exactly. So for a base game, this is a perfect thing. But Cities of Splendor
Hmm.
gives you some extra objectives. Like it's not just impressing nobles anymore. It's so
Hmm.
that's why maybe that's when the double gems come into the picture.
Right. So coming back to the components that are required for this game, right? Um, do you feel I mean, we've all played the game and we know that the first thing that finishes is the lowest row, and then
Hmm.
the second row starts giving you horrible options. And then finally the third row is always there in front of us. Nobody's aiming for it. Probably in the whole game, 2 cards will be used up or something like that. No, I mean I'm just thinking of it from average of all the other games. But I was just trying to see, from a component design perspective, like when we played, right? When either of us have played this game,
Hmm.
has it helped targeting the first gem? Are you superstitious about it when you start Splendor? Like I always start collecting gems, the diamonds first.
Not at all. I think the cheapest cards get whatever you can get for the cheapest value at that point of time.
Exactly. But there
Yeah.
are players who are very superstitious. They're like, I'll always start with Onyx.
Really?
Then I think the
Like,
win
okay,
rate is not
Onyx,
likely to be that
the
high.
game is good.
No, I don't think
No.
that's what. I mean, I have not seen anyone doing that either.
Mhm.
The 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 first card is usually the, I mean, the
Yes.
cheapest, or the something like. I mean, if
Most
there's an
affordable
experience,
at that
yeah.
point, yeah.
Let's look at it from this perspective. What are the first 3 gems that you will take? The tokens.
I think there's 3 criteria. It's what's on the board. So the entire board, not just the first row, the entire board, because you're action chaining. You're saying, I will get this gem, which will help me get that gem, which will help me get that gem, which will maybe help me get a novel. So that's your first thing, the lay of the entire board, which is why if you're superstitious, you're probably going to lose, because you cannot guarantee that your board is going to be in your favor every time.
Point number one, don't be superstitious as a designer. Okay.
Yeah, the second thing is obviously the value of a card, right? Within a set of cards, okay, if there are 2 blues, if the board has a lot of blue and there are 2 blues, one is probably easier to get than the other, or it makes more sense for me, whatever. So within each card, what is the best value? That's the second thing. Or the first thing, 1 and 2 is interchangeable.
Mm.
And then the third thing is where I am in the player order. Because if I'm playing third, I have the third pick on what's coming out. And
Mm.
also there are cards which are going to come out which may be better for me. So that has to be factored in as well. You can't go for the best card because players 1 and 2 are going to get the first and the second best
Yes.
card. You have to operate on that assumption.
I think Shyam, you totally brought up one awesome point here. So one thing is
The player
based on
order.
the cards in front of you, right? That's a very important thing in this particular game. You actually can keep a count of. I mean, in this game, you're not removing any cards from the game, saying that these cards are not going to be there, right? Like try to bring in some more variability into the game. There'll always be this same deck of green cards, yellow cards, and the blue cards, right? Um, and the count of each of these cards is going to be set already, preset, right? Like for example, if you're only getting blue cards after blue cards, I mean blue gems after
Mm.
blue gems, you know that once you acquire this, they're not going to come again in the deck,
Hmm.
right? So that's one of the. I mean, this particular insight. I don't think from a game designer perspective he would have designed it keeping this in mind, right? But this limitation of resources always plays this kind of a game for you where you actually have to keep a tab on what is coming up more and more. So you know that the next, you'll start strategizing in such a way that, okay, there is a scarcity of this particular one. I better not think that in the future I will get that card, then I will use it and stuff like that.
But I also feel how many people, why was Splendor made in a way where it's targeted as an easy opening game for people getting into the hobby, not somebody who's going to dive deep to that level where we are discussing. Of course, we are dissecting it, but also the fact that after playing it the first 20, 30 times, you want to upgrade yourself to the next level of game in the game world out there, So the novelty still stays, and there is still so much to explore on every game that you play. The more seasoned players that you keep playing this game with, breaking the rules here, there. Newbies, I really enjoy collecting cards and like making that do something else. So I enjoy the process the way it has been designed, not necessarily knowing it when I had started playing it. कि अरे ये सोच के बनाया है kind. So the whole idea of exchanging and receiving something and being able to watch what others are doing, what these kind of games bring into the picture is something that I really enjoy, and as a game that I would actually always pick up when I'm introducing it to new people.
I think, Shradha, you're a very passive player at the table.
I am. I think compared to Mangesh, I'm a very passive player. Like comparatively, also I think it's because of the job profile. But I can give a good competition when it comes to competition. I'm like, okay, head off.
Cool.
So I have to spend.
Let's do a face-off sometime. All right.
Sure.
No, this is very cool. I think we've touched upon pretty much everything in this edition of.
There's this one point that I think needs to be discussed here is the player order. I think Shyam mentioned it. If you're third, then things change, and it's very important to acknowledge it here. Like I have seen people complaining that I was fourth, I couldn't get the gems that I wanted. It's because there is one condition: if there are less than 4 gems left, you can't pick the two same gems.
Two of a kind, yeah.
And that creates a problem for a lot of players, and a lot of people complain about that rule is what I've seen. So player order really matters in this game, and like I mean, your number in player order can define your entire strategy in this game. Like I mean it's one of the deciding factors for sure. If I mean it might not be the most important factor, but it is a part of your strategy is what I feel. And
but I think even if you finish the game, you're still given that extra turn, right?
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like if we four are playing and I am third, and both of you pick up so there are 7 of each, right? If I'm not wrong, 7 of each.
Yeah, there's 7 of each.
Yeah. And if both of you pick two whites, I can't pick up white straight away. Like, and that's like one action straight away axed for me in my first turn. And
so
people
saying you're referring to the rule where you need to have a minimum of 4 of a particular gem.
4 of a kind, yeah.
Correct.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, true. That's one way of limiting the third or fourth player from getting the resource.
Yes.
Unless you kind of have a telepathic mind and trying to see what is it that they're going to get.
Hence, there are so many options on every turn, Mangesh, don't you think? Like this, there is plenty of options, right?
Yeah, there are options, but the thing is that what will happen is that like players will complain that I was not able to collect a particular resource for like a first initial like 10-15 minutes of the game or whatever, first few turns of the game, and that is why I kind of lost. Like that's people, that's what people will complain about. And you'll often see that, okay, I mean you can see the options, but they don't, right? Like I mean they want to they want to do a particular thing that
want to blame it on the game.
The turn order and where you are in the turn order matters is what you're saying to some extent. Not really change the game, but at least from a motivation level perspective, first time you're playing the game, first turn itself, something is out of stock, you'll be like, damn, I just got hit by a roadblock. Okay, so I think let's dive into the next section. If you look at the components, right, there are basically 3 types of components. You have tokens as a nice tactile
Heavy token.
weight to it. I always thought they were magnetic for some reason. It has that poker chip feel to it. Second thing is the cards and the layout of the cards, the design of the cards, right? The artwork taking up the major chunk of it, and one small data here, data there, and data there. The stats. Third thing is the noble tiles. Why couldn't they be the same size cards? Right? So why do you think they did this?
I think it's good to have it distinctly different because they are not the primary space that you would always be darting your eyes around. They need attention, but not as much as the main grid, etc. There is a lot to the confusion also. I like the fact that they're square tiles and they're these cardboard kinds and not the card flimsy type. Although I have a cheap version of Splendor that I specifically ordered to see what are bad copies of games like.
The Chinese,
so yes, absolutely. Coming in a small box, I was like, but why? Like, just to show people Ghanshyam trader quality versus the actual Mayfair copy of Catan,
right?
What it feels like to look at it and all. So, anyways, coming to, I think I like just how this style looks, feels easy to lay out. 3 for a 2-player game and 5 for a 4-player game. So, do you have something to add, Mangesh? Or Shyam?
No, I mean, I was just thinking about the layout you were asking, right? Like the layout of the cards. I think he essentially wanted to card game. I don't know how the exact thought process behind it, but like what I'm looking at is like he essentially wanted to create a card game with a minimum space kind of. So if you notice like how people place the cards is those white things visible, and the rest of the card is not visible usually. That's how I stack my cards, right? Like,
Me too.
I mean, that is one of the utility, like that is one of the things that he wanted to kind of.
That's a good point that you brought up. But if you actually look at it, the top section where he puts the victory points, the banner is white and the number is white.
Yeah.
From a design perspective, it's like
yes. Yeah. I mean, I mean that might be something that that have gone wrong on
and
their
even
side,
the font that is used, like when you play with older generation, they'll be like one, 2, and 3. One and 2 look very similar in some of the cards.
Yeah.
So especially the ones which are written on the small tokens or the small cards, they'll be like they'll have to bend down and look at it. Oh, okay. So that's what I was trying to see. If we had to make these more symbolic than put numbers, more iconography, would that work?
I think the current thing is actually pretty good. Just to touch on the previous thing, I was just thinking through all of the components, and I actually really like all of the components. And I think they have been designed really well, keeping in mind the game theme as well as the game audience. So if you think about the chips, the most minimalistic version, suppose we had to make a really low-cost minimalistic version of this game, we didn't need chips, right? We could just have little tokens. We didn't need cards. We could just have these little blanks with like dots on them instead of the numbers, or maybe cards. Cards are pretty cheap. But starting with just the chips, what chips allows you is it's a great tactile experience because you have them in your hand. It feels great. It sounds great. It's very clinky. And that automatically makes me connect with gems because I think of gems as wealth, as gold, as coins, as something that clinks, as dumb as that sounds. That's what chips gives you. It allows you that ability to do that.
Right.
It also targets
huge thing about user experience that we're talking about here, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So
and also the age group, because think about the age for this, right? If you have tokens, all of a sudden you have a choking hazard. But because of the size of these things, there is no worry about that. Like this can safely be targeted towards a younger audience because they are bigger. And even the tactile experience between turns, I don't think they would have designed the core game around that, but a sort of inadvertent benefit of components like these is that it allows you a great tactile experience even when it's not your turn. If you watch poker players, very often they're playing with their chips between turns. If you think of Pirates of the Caribbean, where I think it's Davy Jones who's
Yeah.
like clinking the coins between their fingers and stuff, those are the kind of things you can just do with
Fidgety.
chips, right?
It gives you that satisfaction.
It gives you satisfaction, and you notice a lot of players will do that when they play Splendor. Even when it's not their turn, they're just thumping their chips on the table and stuff. It's a great. It keeps you involved. It keeps you in line with the components.
So the reason why I brought up this aspect of iconography, if you actually look at these cards, you can clearly differentiate what is it that you need for acquiring a card versus acquiring a noble type.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
The circular and the rectangle, yeah.
You can blindly, clearly, if you just look at the card, okay, this one needs round tokens. And the noble cards needs rectangular cards.
Yes.
So that's
However, people get confused. Like one has to point it out. You see, this is rectangle. This means you need card. And these are circular. So that means this is referring to tokens as the key.
So in case all of them are just cards, like if the noble tile was a card and this was a card, from that third layer of user experience where you're bringing in iconography to differentiate different components, you need this for this, for this, for this. That actually, at the back of your mind, it actually is working for you in such a way that it's differentiating the different components.
Yep.
Just imagine if it was just a color or just the gem, right?
Right.
It would
Right.
the players big time.
Yes.
I think it draws a clear differentiator that those are not cards, because let's say the top row of cards was red and they indicated nobles. You would associate, okay, I use these components, these chips for cards, therefore I use the chips for the same card. To prevent having to write an explicit exception in the rules around that, and to program your brain to think that clearly these are different, I think it makes a lot of sense to keep them.
Yep.
Yes.
So I think from a user experience perspective, this game is a fantastic example where for pros and cons, it has everything. And I think we all unanimously agree that it's one of the best games to introduce a newcomer to a game.
Absolutely.
Now, last couple of sections left, and then we can end this session. Honestly speaking, till now, I think it's been going fantastic. I absolutely have enjoyed every bit of it. If you look at it from a publisher's perspective, right? The box, the packaging, I'm actually referring to the artwork, the packaging, and the pricing. These are the three main things, right? The box is actually a monster staring at you because unnecessarily you're adding, weight to the box, volumetric weight to the box. You're going to make the cost of shipping this across the world almost tripling it or quadrupling it. But is that worthy enough where you're actually sacrificing, so much of money just for that experience? What do you think? Is it doing justice?
Not at all. Not at all. I've been thinking of the carbon footprint of the board game industry. It's massive. It's huge. One of the most neatly packed games that I've seen in terms of its insert and everything, Jaipur. It's beautiful. It's compact. It's so carryable. Like I take it everywhere that I go. Set and Jaipur and other games. I had to merge the two boxes of Splendor. This is the only game expansion which I've merged everything into one.
Nice.
Because the other insert that we had in the original Splendor, tokens would be all over the place. I store my games mostly vertically, like the rest of us. I don't store them horizontally. So tokens are anyways all over the place. The cards stack well in the three categories. It's fine. Like you need to shuffle them any which way. It's not difficult to segregate the cards either. So what's the point of volumizing a game? Is it because it says I thought it was only Indian mindset. If it's a big box game only, then it would sell.
It's the world mindset. So basically, what I was coming to was, now he's designed this beautiful game, spent a bomb on artwork, and he knows that this game has a potential to be a super hit. He knows that, the publisher knows, the designer knows this game has all the ingredients for it to be a multi-million copy run. Okay. Now, from a value proposition perspective, right? Because he can't charge just because the components are few and stuff like that. He can't say, like for in India, I don't know how much Splendor costs, around $3,000.
Yeah,
35.
3,800 sometimes. Like,
So the MRP is 3,999, I think.
yeah,
Right? Is it? It must be.
I'm just
yeah,
quickly checking. Yeah.
Right. So let's assume that in US it's around what $35 or something. You can get a copy of Splendor for $27 also after discount. So to really match that expectation of price versus game and components, and slowly you will realize that uh, gamers when they play, they are going to slowly, an instant reaction would be like, damn, this game has so less components, why am I paying such a bomb, right? But once you start playing the game, once you appreciate the game and things like that, then you'll be like,
It's worth
okay,
every penny.
we paid
Yeah.
the money for the game,
Yes.
right? But I feel pricing it this high for a particular this kind of a game, it serves two purposes. One, you're trying to filter out a particular category of people for some reason. Okay,
Hmm.
the people who are going for a cheap solution or a gifting solution, who have always bought a Monopoly and a Scotland Yard and a those typical classic games. I think they're trying to filter that crowd out who is looking for a bargain in a game, but who actually want good value in a particular game. And second option is, I think, he's trying to absorb a lot of expenses because he knows that this game is going to be a hit in Europe or in US or wherever. And now if he has to ship it all over the world, now the box is big. Now I figured out this. I better bump up the price to cover my costs and have a profit margin, right? So this is the part of the business of board games that I want to bring in every dissection of a game, because we might analyze a game from a very different filter and a different lens, but we also need to understand that the main component or the main pillar for the game to be in the market is the publisher, right? And I think there are probably 20-30 publishers for this particular game right now.
yes,
Right? All over the world, there are different publishers who've taken the license for it and designed the game. I mean, manufactured it. But I don't think there are no. I think Marvel was the only one where they bought an IP to attract people into Splendor again. So that was a new strategy which a lot of publishers are using, trying to get IP. Like for example, when Lego was business was falling, they took up the IP of Justice League and Star Wars and Harry Potter and things like that. So picking up intellectual IP like these from licensing, getting licenses to use that particular IP was a big thing. And even today, a lot of people are actually using this to grab newbies and make them buy this particular game. That's one of the main reasons why you would see a Catan, which is Lord of the Rings themed, or Game of Thrones themed and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a new trend that's going on. Just keep this in mind when you're thinking of making money out of.
I like the way you think, Falgun, like totally the business perspective that all of these games need to have, or the way game designers also have to think when they are designing games. I think that comes as the last component, but also, yes, exactly. They have to make money at the end of game, at the end of the day. And it's not bad to make money. Also, if the games are really good, one should be happy to pay the price for the novelty of the game. This is something that I keep harping during my game circles and other things. Oh, how much did you get it for? Oh, that's too expensive. I was like, it's worth it. Istanbul is one of those games that I can't stop talking about or drooling over, whether digital or analog. Like, I'm like, bhaiya, badya, best of the best. There's so much juice packed in that game. However, I love Splendor also. I recommend it to almost a lot of people. And I vouch for it. Ki, guys, even if it's expensive, mere kehne pe le lo. Just take it because I'm saying so, and you can thank me
The
later.
iPad version is a much cheaper entry for a normal player. It just costs like $200 or something like that, 240.
Which one?
The iPad version of Splendor.
Oh, yes. And it's well done, actually. The one which I was playing on Board Game Arena is done very well. I don't know if you guys have seen.
Yeah.
The Board Game Arena version is also really good.
It has AI, it has everything. So,
yeah. BGA, it doesn't have AI, but like Board game arena won't have an AI, so
The
you need
Asmodee
all.
digital version has AI.
Yes, yes, yes.
You
It's
can
the
play
same
against.
version on Steam and everywhere else. Like so, Steam is like the cheapest in India actually. If you can get like 147 rupees something.
Well, all
And
right. I think
Um,
I think we've touched upon everything. Is there anything else that we want to look at? Last question. This is directly targeted at you and Mangesh, Sham and Mangesh, because you guys are the 50% one leg in board games and one leg in digital. If Splendor was made into a digital game, and it is already a digital game,
yes,
which edition is a lot more scalable for a business?
uh,
digital. Scalable in terms of, so I think there are advantages to both. Can I quickly dive just because I this thing it on your previous this thing around size, I would
Hmm.
suggest anyone who's watching or
Oh yeah,
whatever,
Epic
check out
Games.
Tiny Epic, right? It's a clear sign that hey, the quality of the game matters. You can get away with a deserving price
Is
point.
the
You
Tiny
don't need
Epic
a big
guys
box for, yeah, but the entire series, right? You can have a small box, doesn't
amazing?
matter because the game is good. Just to
Amazing.
circle back on the point that hey, I think both sides have to work on it. Like both consumers and producers have to realize that size of the box is not important. If people,
Yeah,
but we have to be willing to pay for it. Only then will people be
exactly.
willing to publish it in that way.
Right, right,
Uh, yeah. So getting back to what you were saying on digital, um, I think there are advantages to both, obviously, and a lot of people who go into board games specifically want to be away from technology. And it's nice because it's social. You can interact with people. There's a tactile feel,
right.
etc. The advantage of a digital game is it's updatable, right? So think of an expansion for Splendor. So what Shraddha just pulled out with those cards. Suppose I have goofed up and published a physical version with a really unbalanced card, which happens in a lot of
Hmm.
games, right? Where people are like, okay, this
Hmm.
card is just really
Yeah,
rubbish. We need to take it out of the game or we need to hotfix it by having some house
right.
rules around it.
The
You don't have to
censor.
worry about that in a digital game. You can just patch it.
yes,
Similarly, in terms of expansions, you want to bring out 10 new cards, you can just release an expansion. You don't have to, print out an entire version of it, and you can charge for that
manufacturing.
expansion. So in terms of costs, also you can
Hmm.
do well.
Okay, let me
Where
rephrase the question. If you had to bring out a game, which is purely all the mechanics are basically, it could have been a board game. It
yeah,
could have easily been a board game, but as a choice in 2022, will I make this into a board game or will I make this into a digital game? So will I make this into a board game and then digitize it, or make it digital and then make a physical version? What do you?
I would make a board game first, just because
Yeah.
I enjoy them. And I think the digital space is extremely competitive anyway. We talk about board games
Correct.
being competitive, but digital is
Yeah.
really competitive, especially with
I'm
mobile gaming, which is a big chunk. So you're competing against people you don't need to be competing against. Therefore, just work in an industry where it makes more sense. Of course, personally, I'm invested in board games. Therefore, I'd want to make it a board game as well. But I think we should always acknowledge, the sort of advantages that digital has, and kind of think of where you can take the advantages of both and kind of make the best of it.
Hmm.
yeah.
To add to it, from the educational perspective space, digital board games have been a savior in the last 2 years, where we have still been able to introduce the best of the board games via platforms like Board Game Arena and other independent platforms to students, and it has been very effective. So digital board games is also the future that people would
So it is
parallelly
a
develop.
stepping stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mangesh, you were saying something. Hmm.
I don't know how many of you guys are aware, and I every single video game company today is making a board game. Every single,
Yeah.
I bet on it. I bet on it. There is a
I think
Skyrim
it's
board game.
licensed out to somebody. It's
No,
primarily, I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know where
but
it's
still,
coming.
yes, but that's what I'm saying. Like even the biggest of the biggest board game companies, video game companies are moving to board game,
Yeah, I
board
think
game
God of
space.
War and all of these games are.
So God of War, you name it. Like there's a Doom, there is Skyrim, there is Darkest Dungeon, everything you name it. Like a simple co-op game, like Deep Rock Galactic is making a board game. And when I look at the project, it seems like a very no. I mean, I'm not very impressed by the board games. Like they're just making the board game for the sake of making it, is what I feel sometimes.
Right.
Hmm.
But they are entering this industry. That means there is something which board games, like which can, like the scalability, and there is something that
Mhm.
they have tapped, which not a lot of us might see it. Like,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think making a digital game is it has its own like, I mean, there are a few things which you have to do differently, and making a board game and digital as it is something that you can go for if you are into a board game space primarily, is what I
Right.
would suggest. uh,
Hmm.
I mean, the optimization and, like, there are a lot of other things, like which engine to use and all these kind of stuff that
Exactly.
coming
That's
into
that's
picture, and then
that's a
that,
lot of money invested into that part.
yeah,
It's not easy,
so
right?
it's not very easy to do that. Yeah.
Great stuff, man. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I think you must
Yes.
have answered quite a lot of questions that people would have even.
Yeah, I was just checking Twitch. There is someone, Master Goblin, and I think Amit had joined on a
Mhm.
chat for a while.
Mhm. Any
We
questions
didn't.
that we should
No,
answer from there? I don't think.
no. They like, someone replied about what kind of strategy they use in Splendor, and I think
Okay, nice.
maybe
That's
next time we'll
good.
try to acknowledge the comments also.
Very good.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep, I think I need to get another device to just keep track of Twitch comments. Super
Yeah.
cool, guys. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Now, before we leave this session, I just want to announce that the next game that we will be dissecting is King Domino.
Okay.
And yeah, and I'll be inviting a couple of more,
Yes.
one or two, depending on their availability. But I know one person I have to have on this panel. He's an expert at King Domino. Probably people are
Okay.
petrified of him.
Okay.
Does Mangesh know about him? I mean, all of us know about him. Anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'll be bringing him into this, and it'll be fun. King Domino is a fantastic game.
It
Again,
is.
much cheaper than Splendor, and
Yeah.
pretty meaty as well. So,
Hmm.
yep,
So,
great, fantastic. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
all right.
Awesome. Thanks for setting it up, Falgun.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for hosting it. Yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic that we are so far away and we have managed to do this. And I think I'm supremely motivated to do a lot more sessions like this. I think it is a content that we are creating which is going to be useful forever. So, uh, yeah, it's timeless. All right.
All right.
See you guys. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Okay.
Have a good
Have a
weekend.
good
Bye.
weekend.
Yeah,
Yes.
you
Yes.
Bye
You
too.
bye.
as well, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.